For Mental Health Week, we are joined by Dan Doerksen. Dan, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Nicole.
So you're in specifically to speak on the topic of mental health in the workplace and how to create a healthy atmosphere. Can you talk about where that all starts?
It all starts with the culture that you have. I mean, often when I talk about mental health at work, really what we're talking about is do you care about human beings? Right? Mental health is your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors. That's everything. It's really all inclusive. And so at work, we've got the opportunity to create the conditions for people to thrive, right? And I think there's a case to be made for that on the human side of things. So job satisfaction is the second correlating factor for life satisfaction. So I'm going to spend 80,000 hours in my career. I don't want to be a robot. I'd like to be a human being at work. And so there's a case to be made that this is just the right thing to do for people to thrive. Mm-hmm. I think there's also a business case to be made. I mean, sometimes we feel like, all the time and energy we spend on mental health and our people can be an expense, and that's difficult. HR is always an expense. And really what we see and what the research shows is that all the money we pour into that, we get more of that back. So there's an ROI anywhere from 2 up to 11 times the money we put into it, right? And so the longer you have mental health programs in place, the more ROI you get. And so even though there's an expense to it, when it comes to issues of productivity and absenteeism, turnover, and all of that, you're actually on the back end, you're going to be doing better for the business when you do better for the people. And
you say it all kind of starts with the manager and how he acts with his employees, or she, I should say.
Yeah, 100%. So job satisfaction, really, I mean, it starts and ends with the relationship with the manager. It's wild. People start jobs for all sorts of reasons. They leave jobs because of relationships with managers. And so when we look at what causes people to thrive in a workplace, more than 70% of that is just connected to, does my supervisor care about me? Right? And so as a supervisor, you really set the tone, right? Am I willing to be vulnerable myself? Am I willing to be transparent? When I ask, how are you? Do I care to hear an answer? Am I spending time and energy with them, or is this all about have we hit our KPIs and our metrics today, and all of those sorts of things? You have to move beyond some of that and allow yourself to build relationships. And I think sometimes managers, I still get asked the question, how close can I get to my employees?
Yeah.
And I say, well, how much of a human being do you want to be, right? Like, how engaged do you want to be? If you don't know them and allow yourself to build a real relationship, and dare I say even friendship with people at work, you're going to miss out on opportunities to get to know what really drives them, what really motivates them, and where they're going in life and how you set them up for that. And so, if you don't want to build a relationship with your people, go for it, but you're never going to get the performance, productivity, and energy in the workplace that you're looking for.
And I like what you said too before. You're allowing your staff to, have a bad day. Sometimes we feel off. Sometimes it's not great. So if we can still, like you say, if we can just be human at work, that makes a big difference.
100%. Bad days are going to happen. I've got at least one day every week where I'm just in a funk.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You'll get through it, right? And so be supportive and understanding and empathetic with your people when that happens.
Absolutely. So Dan, can you tell us about maybe some practical solutions or even examples of businesses who have created a really, really good work atmosphere?
Yeah, so there's loads of examples out there. I think the gold standard has often been, we talk about things like mental health days and time off and employee assistant programs. Do they have access to counseling? But there's, I think, really creative things that we can do for people. When we listen and empathize and get to know them, then we start to have creative solutions of what do they really need. And so I love some of the examples out there. IKEA has this concept called ficus. Of course, they've just got a I don't know what it is, Swedish and Nordic name for it, but it's this idea that informal relationships and connections are really healthy in the workplace.
For sure.
So that's where, really that creativity thrives. And there's things that happen in our brains and chemicals and neurons that fire when we have conversations with each other. And so let's support that, right? And so they actually created and designed their buildings to have lots of informal relational connecting areas. They provide coffee and cake for their people. And so rather than saying, hey, shut that conversation down and get back to work, they're actually saying, no, stop working, go have that conversation, right? Like if you need to just get up and go have cake with someone, get up and go have cake with someone, right? There's another example. Atlassian, they're a software company. Going beyond mental health days and vacations, they've recognized that hey, actually, we want to start people on the right foot. So rather than waiting 3, 6, 12 months for them to take time off, they implement the holiday before you start, the pre-cation, right? And so before you even get here, here's a travel voucher. Go take a trip before you start. We want you to be healthy when you start here, right? There's another organization, even locally, that hired someone, brought them in, and for the first, I forget what it was, if it was a matter of days or weeks, but they said, we actually don't expect anything of you other than learn, recharge, connect with people. Don't worry about productivity and I just thought, that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Let's care about people, and you're going to get all of that back in return on the back end. So don't even worry about the investment.
Well, and to build off of that, often you hear from people the best way to learn about a job is like learning on the job. There's no better education than just kind of doing it and figuring it out on the way. Yeah,
totally. And I would say, getting back to it starts with managers. When we talk about mental health at work, number one, can you normalize conversations about mental health at work? Right? If you're awkward as a manager and you can't talk about things like emotions and anxiety, depression, burnout, all of it, if that's really difficult for you, and that's going to be difficult for your people, right?
Yeah.
And so your ceiling becomes their ceiling.
Absolutely.
So if you want transparency and vulnerability in your team, you have to model that, right? And so, the term for that often that we use is psychological safety. Do people feel safe enough to bring up ideas, concerns, and issues without fear of being humiliated? There won't be a consequence. I really can bring this up. And honestly, most teams have very low levels of safety. And as a manager, it's your job to create the conditions for that. And so you have to model that.
Absolutely. What are some of the resources, some places people can go to learn more about mental health in the workplace?
Yeah, there's so many great resources out there. On the Canadian side, mentalhealthcommission.ca. Workplacestrategiesformentalhealth.com is also a fantastic place. I mean, this is a great week to just go spend 10, 20, 30 minutes on those websites, and you're going to be better for it.
Once again, Dan, thank you so much for joining us for Pembina Valley Mental Health Week.
My pleasure. Thanks, Nicole.